Hey, it's me, Dave Tester, again with the Chris Lofthus Show. We call it the Radio Real Estate Show. And, of course, Chris Lofthus is the Chris Lofthus Group at Keller Williams Realty, Boise. Chris, it is great to see you. And what a weekend. Fall is officially here. And at least looking at the magazines like Wall Street Journal and across the country, right, Boise's the place to be for real estate.
Oh, yeah, we're all over the radar again. You know, we have been for probably 6 months or so. And it's all good news, but you know, we talk about national news and how much people listening to the national news. Obviously, you know, nothing negative about Boise news. It's just it's not like, you know, when you turn on, you know, O'Reilly, people come home, they turn on Fox. They want to know what's going on with the presidential election. So we're getting a lot of national news out there.
Now, you and I turn on Fox, not everybody else. They turn on MSNBC, right?
Of course.
Our little political statement, yes, right?
So, you know, overall, I guess because I always kind of preach the word that I say, you know, let's look locally at things here. And locally, you know, Boise's doing fantastic. And so the point I'm trying to make, you know, and you kind of discussed the Wall Street Journal, you know, this week they posted an article and discussed national news and how, you know, we're doing, and from you know, nationwide as a whole, we're up about 1.5% if you look at total sales price across the nation. Well, if you look at Boise in general, we're up 14%. You know, we're number one. So we just took over number one, fastest recovery. I mean, we're doing fantastic. Phoenix slipped out of the number one spot down to now to number two, and even Salt Lake City was up there. I think Salt Lake City fell around number 5. But, you know, the great part about it is if you look at in general, you know, our inventory levels are low, and that's part of the effect of you know, the price going up in general, and new construction is going absolutely crazy. I mean, new construction is up. If you look, you know, overall, if you look at all of our inventory, we're up 14% on closed sales price. New construction is up 6%, but volume-wise, new construction closed transactions is up 35%, which is an incredible number.
So let's go to new construction. And the only reason I ask you, there's so much around me, and we've had this discussion before where I live in Paramount. So, Chris, I can't tell. I keep saying because you tell me, and you are the expert, it's a great thing for a guy that doesn't have new construction. It's a great thing. Tell our listeners that don't get the opportunity like I do to see and work with you all the time.
Right.
What does all the new construction, what does that add up to?
You know, when we talk about this, you know, back in the heyday when, you know, I guess it was 05 or so, and we're talking about, you know, 6,000 transactions being done, and you're talking about, you know, when the market really changed, there's 6,700 homes or 6,000 homes in the market, and everyone's running scared. We're down to 2,300 now. Of that, 373 right now in Ada County are new construction. So it's making up probably about 12% of our total inventory. Well, it's a good sign. So the good sign is that the volume's up. People are going to new construction. It just is what it is. But I think a lot of resale homeowners, it kind of I guess would freak them out. So, for example, Paramount, and you look at some of these other subdivisions, Lakemore in down there in Eagle, Two Rivers, those kind of subdivisions, even Banbury by the golf course there. There's all these new homes coming up, and they're being bought, and they're getting top dollar for them. But the fact of the matter is, we're chewing up lots in those subdivisions, and they're going to be built out. You know, no one wants to buy a house and live through construction. As you know, you've done it for years and years and years. Eventually, Paramount's going to start to grow. The Banbury Meadows, the lots are getting chewed up. So overall, it's a fantastic thing for everybody across the board.
And I guess the other people, when you talk about resale, I'm that guy that's at that place where I said, okay, we might have to wait a little bit. That being said, Claudia mentioned to me, can we finally do those improvements that I want to do to the house? And I think now is a perfect time to do that because, as you said, I mean, we look into the Chris Lofthus crystal ball. It looks pretty good. Now is probably a good time to look at doing some of those kitchen upgrades, bathroom upgrades, those type of things for that when I call you next spring and go, well, put me on the secret list.
Well, and that's kind of what everyone says to me all the time. They look at it and they say, okay, well, why would you push for us to do a remodel on our house? You know, you want to sell it, right? Well, the point is I want long-term clients. At the Chris Lofthus Group, I want long-term clients. So our goal is what your goal is. So if you and Claudia want to stay in your house and you want to upgrade it, and like we always make the joke about it, as soon as you're done upgrading and remodeling your house, you're going to sell it anyway. It's pretty much standard across the board. But, you know, this is what we're having Burton Friesz on today. Burton's been on many times on the show, but We're going to kind of touch base on a few different things that are going on, not just remodels for, your typical homeowner or different things that Burton does. But now we're starting to see a lot of the investment side, and flipping's coming back big time. It's going to be in style for the next 2, 3, 4 years, because you're seeing these people coming in. And I'm not talking about just your $60,000, $70,000 flips. I'm talking about your $150,000, $200,000 flips, where these guys are coming in, cleaning them up, popping them back in the market and flipping them, and just one after another. And Burton can kind of discuss that a little bit for the investors that are listening out there.
So what does that 1.2% above a year ago, what does that mean if you're a homeowner, or if you're saying, all right, I've been renting in Boise, now I'm ready to buy?
Right.
What does that 1.2%? I mean, to me as a broadcaster, I go, oh, great, that's good news. I'm going to mention that on my show tonight. But
Right.
Take it into real world. I live in Eagle, Meridian, or Boise. What does that mean?
Well, real world, when you look at the 1.9%, 1.2%, excuse me, and that's just, this comes from an article that the Wall Street Journal wrote, but they discuss in general, what that is a national number. And what I say, what's so great about Boise, is if you look at, we're 14% and 1.2%, I mean, we are killing it across the board if you look at other states. Part of that is, they say in this report, and they talk about that, from last year to this year, across the country, we're down 24% from foreclosure. From 2 years ago, we're 45% off. And so that's a huge number, which means, the banks have gotten rid of their inventory. We discuss things like shadow inventory. Are the banks holding on to it? And, the article goes on to talk about how there's very little evidence that across the country that these banks are holding on to what they call shadow inventory, because they don't want to flood the market, like places we talk about, like Las Vegas, Bakersfield, which has kind of gotten beat up a little bit. But there's no evidence out there that's going on, especially in Boise. Right now, if banks were holding on to property, there is no question in my mind that they would have them on the market, because, with 2,300 homes on the market out there and the population we have, especially with the new construction boom, guarantee those banks will put them on.
I think you make a great point, because obviously that's the fear. Things get going, we move on and say, hey, this is awesome, and then the banks say, oh, let's let all that go. Based on your research, you feel like that's not the case.
Well, it just isn't. We talked last weekend a little bit with Peter Oliver from Thornton Oliver Keller. Same goes in his world. We start talking about, could you have gotten a smoking deal 2-3 years ago on a commercial property? Sure, you could have. Things are changing in that world. Well, they follow our world. So that's why Peter and I talk a lot. Just talked to him yesterday on the phone, but residential real estate, commercial is going to follow it. But residential is going to come back first. And when you look at the average sales price for resale in Ada County right now, last year it was $140,000. Right now, year to date, we're at $162,000. That's 14%. That's insane. If you look across, it's not going to keep up. It's not going to keep repeating itself. There's just no way we don't have the job sustainability for that type of increase. But I think we're going to start seeing a 4 to 6%, maybe this next year in 2013, and a steady 4 to 5%, 2-3 years in a row. So when you start talking those numbers, you're talking 25%, and that's the case. And that's the case. And these buyers are starting to really realize that sellers are kind of starting to take control again.
If this is the first time you've listened to the program, the Real Estate Radio Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group, Chris comes your way each and every weekend at this time, and part of what we look at, and I say a big part of it, is, Chris, it's not only about selling a house, it's creating a home. Burton Friesz will join us in a bit, and his topic is remodeling to live and stay in your home versus repairing and upgrading to sell. We'll talk about that. But when you had mentioned shadow inventory, and Chris, I'm kind of giving people a feel of this show. Tim Bungard of Pioneer Title came on the program last spring and gave people a harbinger of saying that's not the case. There isn't shadow inventory, and that's what you try to build with this show. Not only is it, that's where it is now. You were able to tell people these type of things long ago.
Right, yeah, and I'm not super genius. I'm not sitting there saying I have a crystal ball, but when you work off cold hard facts and you look at really what's going on, and you have to look at inventory, you have to look at distress sales, like Tim says, when they do their PTC index, and go on there and look at it, you can really see the truth, and the numbers are just there. They're true, factual numbers, which we go off of. The problem we're seeing is that we have so much positive momentum that, like we talked about, the sellers are starting to figure it out, and the buyers are saying, well, I want that $140,000 house, now it's $162,000. And there's that, we always talk about that stalemate, kind of that chess game that's going on. And the fact is, buyers are starting to make a move. I mean, we just talked to Jerry Kelly, who's a client specialist with our group, and she is busy, and people are jumping off the fence, and that's standing there this morning. We sold a couple more. And so people are starting to make moves, which is always a great sign.
So you heard Chris say, hey, on Saturdays they're busy selling and working. So as soon as he's done with this with the show today, he's got a showing to go on. Chris, how do folks reach out to you if they're in their car saying, hey, I saw that house I really liked, or more importantly, let's put our home on the market? How do they reach out to your group?
You can call me direct on my cell phone, 514-5003, or you can always email us at contactus@clgeagle.com. And as a matter of fact, which we'll talk about in the fourth segment, this weekend and the following 3 weekends is the Fall Parade Show, and we have one of Flaherty's houses in there.
Oh, wow.
In the shores in the back of Two Rivers, which is where I'm going as soon as
you're headed
here.
there right now. Wow.
And it's open right now. It's open from 11 to 5 o'clock, right? And at 11,
Will you wave the booties on me when I come in? They're never big enough for my feet.
As a matter of fact, I actually cut myself a deal so I don't have to wear booties, but you'll be wearing them.
All right.
For sure.
Well, we'll follow you there. Tell everybody where that's located, because obviously they're going to want to go to it.
It's in the shores in the back of Two Rivers. So if you're coming off of Eagle Road, head into Two Rivers, back to the left-hand side there, you'll see a little tiny, there's a lot of small subdivisions in there, but it's called the Shores. It's back there on Shearson Drive, and it's about roughly 4,000 square foot single-level house. We have it listed for $714.
All right. It's great that we have Annette here. It's like that broadcast news, that little voice in your ear.
Show me, she's my handler.
So follow the signs. It'll say Parade of Homes. And like we said, as soon as we're done here, Chris is headed out there. You can go on the website. It's Chris Lofthus, ChrisLofthus, chrislofthus.com. Or you can also call the headquarters at 350-6228, 350-6228, Annette. And the fine staff at Chris Lofthus Group will reach out to you. When we come back, Burton Friesz will visit with us, and like we said, what a great topic he has today: remodeling to live and stay versus repairing and upgrading to sell. Burton Friesz, be a thrill to have him on. It's Burton Friesz Bath and Kitchen Remodeling and Improvements. You, as always, are listening to the Real Estate Radio Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group. That's at Keller Williams Realty of Boise. Back right after this.